Good morning and welcome to SimWorld. Today we are back in action. A big thank you to B-Ron for holding down the fort a week ago. We are here with what was a very exciting week of SimWorld prep, and we brought on the prep master to do it. Maestro, good morning. Maestro, are you recovered from the chaos, and are you ready for more of it to continue tomorrow night in
You
SimWorld
know,
prep?
I tell you what, Lord, give me strength to give me bail money. I'm ready to go. Let's have some more games today, tomorrow, the next day, tomorrow night, Christmas night, October night, everybody's night. How you doing there, Marsh?
I'm good. 12 games in action starting all the way back, on Friday of last week. A week delay, all to just build up the anticipation of what was a pretty entertaining opening weekend. So, Maestro, I'm curious for you. In the start, we're going to go team, we're going to talk player, and we're going to look ahead to tomorrow night's quartet of games. What stood out to you to the first 12 games in the most notable team performance that we saw over the weekend?
It was by far the OGs. The OGs, Marsh, came out in a way I think not surprising because of the way they've been sort of trending the entire year. But the way they came out and who they came out playing that way against is, I think, the thing that made it more outstanding. I mean, they really handled SimWorld Atlantis in a way that the game was pretty much in hand very quickly. They played in every single aspect of the game, Marsh. It was inside out, outside in. They took advantage of the transition. It was almost as if it was a flashback to how they made their run through the to the race the one last year. We saw that game in full display this year, and it was glorious, man. So very much not necessarily a surprise like it's a Jack in a Box surprise, but it was definitely a surprise as in how could their strength against a team that was a higher seed against them, that they basically stopped Atlantis from doing all the things Atlantis does well. It was just very impressive.
Is this something that you think for the OGs is replicable as you look further down the line where they're going to get the winner of either Reigning Trays or Bay Area Breakers? They play obviously on Tuesday.
Oh, absolutely. I think so. Because if you look at the way Reigning Trace plays, it's very similar to what we see with SimWorld Atlantis. Now, the difference with Bay Area Breakers is Bay Area Breakers have a stronger half court game, right? And also Bay Area Breakers are more scoring capable on all three levels of the floor, right? So, but that's the only difference. So Bay Area Breakers are sort of closer to who the OGs have shown themselves to be. So, but absolutely, it's definitely replicable because of their coaching, how much engagement we see we see the OGs put on every week, and the way they're trending right now, even coming from starting with the last four tournaments of the season into now.
I think, it's been an impressive run, and I think the only thing that really stood out to me was we hear plenty of, and we should, of the criteria of the Beasts of the East and Philadelphia Elite and their consistent runs. But Southeast Select, who plays tomorrow, they've been to 2 championship games, lost both of them, made it to the semifinals a year ago in their pursuit of 3. They get the win opening weekend against AT Aliens. They'll get Yacht Club tomorrow. That would only just a shout out to head coach Brad Lee, sitting there after an impressive run from Beasts of the East and Philadelphia Elite to continue to march on. All right, let's go to the player side. So I'm curious where you go with the most notable player performance, considering the OG's run as a 12 seed to get into the quarterfinals.
I'm going to say this, and it's a player that did it in a loss. It was Tyrade Bush. He came out and threw down a dirty stat line that's like nobody's business, Marsh. It was, okay, so I'm going to need you to Marsh check me on this one. 14 points, 12 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, 3 blocks, I believe. And just not even this, I can't even count the amount of times that he disrupted the other team. The fact that he led the offense up the floor, the way he reset the team. And having such a strong performance, and for Beyond the Arc to fall 69-64 to Gulf Coast, that he had such a strong performance in that loss meant that if one other player would have stepped at one particular point, because everyone else shot miserably, he shot over 50% from the field. Most of his teammates were shooting in the 30%, the 40% range. It was just one of those things of, I think we got a true taste. He's also gotten better as the season gone along. And one of the things that Yels and I talked about, we did not have that broadcast, but we had talked about this in another broadcast, was how these 15 and 16 and apparently a couple of 14-year-olds have come onto the scene and have really made an impression early. And for me, Bush has made that impression from the first time I saw him in a run last year. So that he had this sort of performance again. Knew he had it in him. Not a surprise that he did it. Just a surprise with how he did it, who he did it against. And were not for the Gulf Coast having a 25-point fourth quarter, I do believe that he could have single-handedly carried beyond the arc to the victory.
Yeah, just a simple motion of not holding on to the rope at the end there. You outscore them by 5 in the first half, and then you just can't kind of keep the rope in hand in the second. And to your point, 4 guys shot 50% or above. One of them was Reynaldo Shackback, who took just 4 shots. A tough night from Jackson Sutton. I honestly thought you were going to go LeJoran Tompkins. 20 points in the round 1 win, 19 in the second. I mean, if you're Syracuse, and you're sitting there and saying, okay, well, we haven't won a game yet, but we've got an elite head coach coming in, and we've got LeJoran Tompkins as kind of this, maybe he's our centerpiece of the future type of prospect. I think you have to be exceptionally excited right now in Syracuse, and you're exceptionally excited because you got nothing else to be excited about with what's on the current product on the floor. But at least you've got a head coach and a prospect. Yeah, very low bar. All right, let's go to Tuesday. We get the day off today, and then we get 4 more games. It all starts with Heartland, Zombie Stars, and Gotham 5 at 6 p.m. So, what matchup or what are you looking for in general coming up here on Tuesday night?
So just straight up, I'm looking to see. I'm really curious about the matchup between Southeast Select and the Yacht Club. It's funny you brought up Southeast Select earlier. I'm really curious about that matchup because of, one, they're not that far apart in terms of the number of points they score per game, the number of points they give up per game. They're not that far apart in terms of their record, but more importantly for me, having seen them play throughout the season, they're not that far apart in terms of how they win and how they lose games. So it's almost going to be we're going to be in a fun house of mirrors, right? We see 2 teams who have been successful in coming back from games, but though not very. We see 2 teams that have lost games that they had control of the game until the last quarter. We see 2 teams who have shown that despite a certain situation, even against teams that people thought might have been better than them, that they can control the entire game. So both of these teams have won in ways that sort of mirror each other. And also the matchup of I really want to see how Darius McBride and KJ Hills, how they're going to come at each other and how they're going to play off each other, and who's going to be that second or even third person that's going to step in. Will it be a Dexter Jackson? Will it be a Kenyon Young? Who are we going to get to compliment, and who's going to be the factor that's going to sort of break the curse of these 2 teams being so much alike?
So Southeast Select has this incredible performance, 63% from the floor, only 1 player on their entire roster shot under 50%. It was Drake Johnson. He took 4 shots. I mean, if he makes 1 more shot, they have nobody that shoots under 50%. Is there any concern with you that they get past AT Aliens? They won by 15. It wasn't like it was a close game, but they did it with this really unrepeatable efficiency from the floor? Or is it more of a look, that's their high end, that's the high water mark, but let's not pretend this is going to dump down to 40% from the floor?
They've been EKG all season, Marsh. So I hate to say it, but no, that doesn't concern me at all. Just because of the fact that they've proven that they could survive in the inconsistency. So it doesn't. Okay, does it bring a moment of concern? Of course it does, right? You want to be as consistent as possible. But then when you have a team that inconsistency is their consistency. You got hey, put the quarter in, listen to the whole song, man. That's how it has to go.
Right. I mean, so if they get this win, and again, I think that we've talked about at not we right now, just in general,
Yeah.
the Dries Williams and Hassan Drayton. There's a heck of a lot of respect, and throw in Tomas Kusa, I think, in that list. But no disrespect to Coach Kusa, but I think there's a high level of respect for Drayton and Dries Williams for what they've done in terms of consistently having their teams meeting a certain expectation of performance.
Right.
Where do you put Brad Lee on that list? Because again, he's made it to 2 championship games. This has been a team that's been really good. I'm trying to get the coaching wins marks here. He's first all time in coaching wins with 71. His coach percentage, his winning percentage, is second all time, 68.3, which is just ahead of Assad Drayton, and of course chasing down Lissa Dodge, who is not going to be moving, so unlikely to be caught. But more wins, higher win percentage. I mean, and again, I know it's not all that, but where do you put him if they can pull an upset here and advance into the quarter or the semifinals?
So funny you would ask that question, Marks, because the idea for me of ranking coaches, I always find myself straying away from the common thought, right? The group think of how do we judge team captains, how do we judge team leaders, and how do we judge coaches? Groupthink always says championships or nothing else, right? Like, you look at the coaches throughout history that have had numerous wins, but they're on that list of the next greatest coach to not have a championship. And I think that's so unfair because it conflates a career of effort, of teaching, of training, of showing, of all those other things that these coaches, the effort that these coaches put into building these programs, building the people in the program up and all that other stuff, right? So I look at a coach like Brad Lee and look at it this way. Blind resume, would he be on my list of coaches I would want to lead my franchise or my team? The answer is absolutely yes. If I had to find a factor of, well, what might not separate him, if I were to say the championships, then what I would do is I would go back. Right at this particular point, I would say, okay, who was on these teams that didn't get the championship versus who was on those teams that did, and start sort of sussing it out a little bit more. I think he's a really, really, really good coach, if not a great coach. I think he is definitely the embodiment of what we want here in SimWorld Prep and even beyond. He is a person that I would give the keys to the franchise to without any hesitation and not worry about anything else going on. And does he need that greatest of all time because he has the most wins but no championships? You know what? I'm not going to speak for his mindset, but it doesn't change how I feel about him and the fact that I would have no problem handing him my locker room keys.
I think it's a unique situation, right, with Brad Lee, because the short list of guys that we hear in terms of who's next to go to college, right? Desadre has checked that list. He's not always the one that lands there. And I think part of that, obviously, is because of the fact that there's plenty of concern in and around Southeast Select about him being not great at communicating. And if you're going to make the leap to college basketball, communication for any level, but especially when you're developing players, which is what college and prep especially are about, communication is necessary. And especially with, parents are still involved in prep. They're still a little involved in college, and they're definitely not involved in the SWBA. And we've seen that with the Ball brothers being the perfect example. Fathers can't last into professional level. Being able to communicate with a player, and equally importantly at this level, a parent. Brad Lee has not mastered that. What he has mastered is getting the most out of his players and getting the most out of these basketball teams. And I think it's unique that he's sitting here with an opportunity to be a potential, 4 in a row trips to the semifinals if they get one more win. Legacies don't matter too much for a player at this standpoint, but I think it really does matter for a coach, right? Because you hear about a lot of the times, who are these head coaches that developed players that perfectly blended development and winning? And Assad Drayton has done that. Drees Williams is attempting to do that. I think he's had a heck of a run in development of talent and being a really good basketball team. What his teams have not done is gotten over the hump. They're trying to do that this season. They are halfway there right now. But that's a big deal, I think, for a head coach in Bradley. I don't think he's mentioned a lot. I think that's because he's had his challenges in terms of his inability to communicate with his team, his players, his parents, right? The parents of the team. That all blends in at the prep level, but it's been an impressive run. So real quick then, any more upsets? Because right now, as we look at the standings, or rather the bracket. There we go. We finally got the word. All right, we got the number 1 seed has advanced. We got the number 2 seed has advanced. Number 3 is playing. That's Yacht Club tonight. Or tomorrow night, and number 4 is playing. So we've got 4 spots up for grabs, only 1 upset thus far to get to the quarterfinals, not the semifinals. Any upsets? Do we get any more upsets, or will the Originators be the only underdog to make it into the quarterfinals?
It's SimWorld Prep, boo. No, it's going to be some other upsets, Marsh. Come on now.
Okay. Who you got? Let's go on a limb then, baby.
Okay, so I'm going to step out there just for you. I'm just going to go and get out of the way right now. I see H-Town having an issue with Lone Star tomorrow.
Okay.
I did, despite that expectation, sorry there. I don't know if Yells is going to watch this or not. So if he does, I know I'm going to get a text about this, but I know H-Town is his team, but I think they're going to have a hard time tomorrow. And, oh, by the way, I'm just going to say this, even though I sort of picked them as the quasi, not really dark horse team that might go deep. They're facing a G5 team that's looking really strong right now, and I think that they need to get off their feet really quick in that game. Otherwise, we might be talking about 2 teams that were highly ranked that might not be making it to tomorrow.
And that one is the first one back, of course, as we get rolling on Tuesday. Gotham 5 and Heartland Zombie Stars, which technically an upset, 8 versus 9. It's always the interesting one when people are like, the 9 seed pulls the upset. It's like, yeah, they're pretty much the same thing. Let's be honest. Somebody had to be higher ranked. Somebody had to be lower ranked.
Yeah.
8, 9, and you're taking the H-Town Hoopers to potentially have some problems as against the 10 seed with Trey at the top, Lone Star Basketball Club. All right, all that gets rolling tomorrow again. Tuesday night, 6 p.m., the 4-header, the quarter header. I don't know, what is it? Quarter header? Quartet header? Whatever it might be. Gotham 5, Heartland Zombie Stars tip off at 6 p.m. Southeast Select, Yacht Club, Southeast Select trying to keep their run going at potentially 7, 8 p.m. Raining Trays, Bay Area Breakers, and then Lone Star Basketball and H-Town Hoopers close all of that out on Tuesday as we finish the opening 2 rounds of the Last Dance. Maestro will be on those calls. And then, Maestro, we're going to bring you back on Wednesday, right? We're going to bring you back and we're going to say what happened on Tuesday. We'll bring you back on Wednesday to talk about it and look ahead to the Last Dance rolling on quarters and semis coming up this coming weekend. Maestro, we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate all you did over the weekend. You had a very chaotic one, so get some rest. Brief respite for you here on Monday night, and then back at it tomorrow as we appreciate all your efforts. We're coming back here tomorrow. We'll talk SimWorld U. We've got the game of the week coming up later on this week. That's Texas and Kansas, a chance for sole possession of first place in the Big 12 on the line for the Longhorns and the surging Jayhawks. A big week in prep coming up. College basketball rolls on. We got some games tonight, including a 1 p.m. tip-off of Miami and Notre Dame. My podcast is about Miami, so I'm a little nervous if my podcast is going to be aged like milk by the time it comes out at 4 p.m. as Miami and Notre Dame gets going at 1 p.m. today. All right, that's our show. We appreciate you, first off, your patience. Appreciate your patience on bearing with us last week. We are back in action, in the flesh this week. Continue to roll on. We'll talk college hoops tomorrow, a big weekend last week, and a top 25 that's gotten a little bit of a shakeup as we continue to roll towards conference championship games. All right, I'm Marsh. That's Maestro. Appreciate you tuning in here on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.
This has been a presentation of SimWorld Sports.